My fiancé slept with my boss the week before our weddings, so I quit silently, took his clients, and left them both in financial ruin. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and I thought loyalty was the most important thing in life. Loyalty to your partner, to your job, to your word diet was how I measured my worth. For years, that belief shaped everything I did. I wasn't the smartest or flashiest guy, but I showed up. I worked hard. I kept promises. And I truly believed that if I gave my all to the right, people would come back someday. I met Hannah 5 years ago, back when we both worked at a small marketing agency. She was sharp, ambitious, the kind of woman who lit up every meeting with her ideas. I was drawn to her mind before her smile, though I'd be lying if I said her laugh didn't make my day a little better. We started as co-workers, then friends, then partners. Over time, she became the center of my world. When I proposed 2 years ago, she cried so hard she could barely say yes. I thought I'd found forever. Then there was Derek, my boss, a man who could charm a brick wall. He built the company from nothing, and people either admired him or feared him. I admired him. He'd taken me under his wing, taught me how to handle clients, close deals, and think like a shark, as he'd put it. I saw him as the mentor I never had. Life felt balanced back then. I'd work 60-hour weeks to climb the ladder, then spend my evenings with Hannah, planning our wedding menus, venues, color themes. She'd tease me for caring too much about the floral arrangements, and I'd joke that marketing had made me a perfectionist. I was exhausted. It felt like everything I'd worked for, career, love, purpose, was finally aligning. But looking back now, I realized something terrible. I wasn't building a life. I was building the stage for my own downfall, and the first crack in that perfect picture appeared the moment Derek started paying a little too much attention to Hannah. I've always believed that real love is built, not found. So when things got hard, I doubled down. When Hannah's freelance career slowed, I told her not to worry, I'd cover the bills until she got back on her feet. I wanted her to feel safe, supported, loved. Between work and wedding planning, I was stretched thin, but it didn't matter. Every late night, every skipped weekend was all an investment in the future. I thought we were creating together. Work was intense. Derek had me managing back-to-back campaigns, and he kept dangling promises like, "Stick with me another 6 months, and you'll be partner material." I believed him. He had that way of making you feel seen, like you were his right-hand man. Sometimes he'd clap me on the back and say, "You're the only one I can trust with this kid." Those words meant something to me. I wanted to earn his respect, just like I wanted to deserve Hannah's love. At home, things weren't perfect, but they still felt solid. Hannah spent hours on her laptop, supposedly working on her portfolio. I'd peek over sometimes, and she'd shut it quickly, smiling nervously, saying, "Just messy drafts." I figured she was embarrassed about unfinished work. I never pushed. I trusted her completely blindly even. I remember one evening vividly. We were sitting on the couch surrounded by wedding catalogs. She looked tired, distracted. I asked, "You okay?" She nodded quickly and said, "Just stressed." "It's a lot." I kissed her forehead and said, "We're almost there. Just a few more weeks, then everything will calm down." She smiled faintly, but didn't meet my eyes. At the time, I thought she was just overwhelmed by wedding stress. Now, when I replay that moment, I realize her silence wasn't about exhaustion. It was guilt, quiet, suffocating guilt that I was too naive to notice. And the worst part, I was too busy chasing loyalty to see the lies building right in front of me at first. I thought Derek was just being friendly. He'd joke about Hannah during meetings, calling her my better half, or asking when he'd finally get an invite to the wedding. It was harmless at first, till it wasn't. One Friday afternoon, he leaned against my office door and smirked. "You know, your fiancée could make a killing in PR. She's got charm." His tone lingered a little too long on the word charm. I laughed it off, but something about the way he said it stuck with me. A few weeks later, he started involving Hannah in company events. "Bring her to the client dinner," he'd say. "It'll look good to show our team's human side." She'd show up in a stunning dress, and everyone would praise her for her confidence, her humor, her looks, Derek especially. I caught him watching her a few times, not like a boss, but like a man calculating. Still, I told myself I was imagining it. He was my mentor, my boss, my friend. Why would he ever cross that line? At the dinner one night, I stepped out to take a client call. When I came back, Derek and Hannah were laughing together, heads close, like they were sharing a secret. She jumped slightly when she noticed me, tucking her hair behind her ear, and Derek just raised his glass with that charming grin. "You've got a keeper, man," he said. The table chuckled, but his eyes didn't match his smile. That night, as Hannah slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, replaying that moment. I wanted to believe it was nothing. My mind tried to rationalize everything. She was friendly. Derek was outgoing. I was but deep down, there was a pulse of unease I couldn't silence. I brushed it off, telling myself that trust meant not letting insecurity win. But I didn't realize yet that the real danger wasn't was faith in the wrong people. And Derek was about to show me just how far friendly could go when he wanted something or someone he couldn't have. The weeks leading up to the wedding felt off. Hannah started spending more time running errands or meeting vendors, but she'd never bring home receipts or photos. I'd ask casual questions. How did the florist meeting go? Or did the caterer finalize the menu? And she'd answer vaguely, avoiding eye contact. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Planning a wedding is chaos, and she was doing most of it while freelancing. But something about her tone-distant, flat kept gnawing at me. Then came the first real argument. One night, she got home past midnight. Her makeup was smudged, and she smelled faintly of cologne mine. I asked, "Were you out with friends?" She froze, then forced a laugh. "Oh my God, are you checking up on me now?" Her words hit like a slap. I stammered, "I was just worried." "You didn't text." She rolled her eyes. "I'm not a child, Adam. You don't need to know where I am every second." Then she went straight to the shower, leaving me standing there in the kitchen. Feeling small, I hated that version of her, the cold, defensive one. It wasn't the woman who once fell asleep on my shoulder after long nights of dreaming about our future. I kept telling myself she was just tired. Maybe the wedding pressure was breaking her. Maybe I was suffocating her. I turned the blame inward because it was easier than admitting the truth. I was losing her, and I didn't know why. At work, Derek had started acting differently too. Less friendly, more distant. He canceled our usual one-on-one meetings and began taking mysterious client calls that I wasn't looped into. When I'd pass his office, I'd hear laughter, sometimes even a woman's voice. I told myself it couldn't be Hannah. I refused to let my mind go there. But somewhere, deep inside, a small, painful truth had already begun to take root. And I had no idea that the next discovery would shatter every ounce of trust I'd ever had in both of them. It happened on a Thursday. Derek had flown out for a client meeting in Chicago, but forgot his work laptop in the office. He called me in a rush, asking if I could grab a few files and email them over. "Sure thing," I said, trying to sound dependable. That was who I was, the guy everyone could trust. I walked into his office, logged in, and searched for the folder he mentioned. But my eyes caught something odd on the desktop, another folder, labeled Personal. I shouldn't have clicked it. I know that. But curiosity got the better of me. Derek wasn't the kind of man who had personal anything on his work device. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Him at events, on trips. And then Hannah. At first, I thought they were normal. A dinner here, a company party there. But the deeper I scrolled, the more my stomach dropped. There were pictures of her in hotel rooms, in dresses I'd never seen, smiling in ways I hadn't seen in months. Then a video thumbnail, her hand on his shoulder. His voice saying her name in a tone that burned itself into my ears. I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I clicked it, hoping there was some explanation, anything but what I feared. But there wasn't. It was them together, laughing, touching, kissing. The kind of intimacy that doesn't come from one mistake, it comes from months of lies. I remember the hum of the office lights, the faint click of the air conditioner, the way my throat tightened until I thought I might throw up. My heart wasn't just breaking, it was detonating. I closed the folder, shut the laptop, and sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the floor. My fiancé and my boss, the two people I trusted most, the two people who defined my life, had just erased it. I didn't scream. I didn't call her. I didn't tell a soul. Something inside me went quiet cold, and in that silence, a single thought took root. They took everything from me, but I was going to take it all back. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the engagement ring box on the nightstand, the one I'd been planning to carry in my jacket pocket on our wedding day. Every memory felt tainted. Her laugh, her touch, even the way she said my name. I replayed every late night she claimed to be busy, every unexplained smile after a text, every sudden plan Derek had canceled last minute. The puzzle pieces fit together too perfectly now. And yet, when morning came, I got dressed for work, like nothing had changed, because I realized something. If they could play their parts so convincingly, so could I. I walked into the office. Derek greeted me with his usual grin. "Morning, partner," he said, clapping my shoulder. My jaw clenched, but I smiled back. "Morning, boss." My voice was steady, calmer than I expected. Inside, though, I was dissecting everything. Every interaction, every file he trusted me with. I started documenting quiet emails, client lists, expense reports, anything that could one day serve a purpose. At home, I became the doting fiancé again. I asked Hannah about the venue, about her dress, about how excited she was for the big day. She smiled like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't living two lives. Sometimes I'd look at her and wonder if she could feel the shift in me, the calm before a storm she didn't know existed. One night, she placed her head on my chest and whispered, "You've been quiet lately." I forced a chuckle. "Just tired from work." She nodded, kissing my neck, and I had to resist the urge to recoil. I let her fall asleep beside me, her arm draped over my chest. I stared at the ceiling, heartbeat steady, mind burning. I wasn't the betrayed man anymore. I was the planner. The observer, the quiet architect of a reckoning neither of them would see coming. And the first move would begin with a smile and a handshake. Over the next few weeks, I became a ghost in my own life, calm on the surface, calculating underneath. Every interaction with Derek became an opportunity. Every meeting, every shared document, every offhand remark, I was collecting puzzle pieces for a picture only I could see. Derek still trusted me completely. He'd hand me confidential client lists, billing sheets, and campaign data without a second thought. "You're the only one who gets it," he'd say. And I'd nod, pretending those words still meant something. At night, while Hannah texted bridesmaids or scrolled through Pinterest, I'd quietly back up company files onto an external drive. I wasn't stealing, I was preparing. Derek had built his empire on manipulation and shortcuts. I was simply learning from the best. I started reaching out discreetly to a few long-term clients, casually suggesting that big management changes might be coming and that I'd ensure smooth continuity if anything happened. People trust calm voices during chaos, and I made sure mine sounded steady. Hannah, meanwhile, was growing bolder. She'd leave for hours with vague excuses, dress fittings, planning meetings, errands. Once, I asked if she wanted to go together, and she snapped, "You don't need to be involved in everything, Adam." Her tone was sharp, defensive. I just smiled and said, "You're right," because what she didn't realize was that every time she lied, every excuse, every secret text, every fake smile was fuel. Derek started mentioning expansion plans, opening a new branch, bringing me on as a senior partner. I nodded through the meetings, pretending excitement, all while laying the groundwork for my quiet exit. In public, I was his most loyal employee. In private, I was dismantling the very foundation of his company piece by piece, and soon, both he and Hannah would realize that the man they thought was blind had been watching everything. I was about to teach them consequence. The wedding was a week away. The venue was booked, the tux was pressed, and every relative had their flight confirmed. On the outside, everything looked perfect. But inside, I was hollow. I hadn't confronted Hannah yet, not because I was scared, but because I wanted her to think she'd won. I wanted her to walk right into her own undoing. The night before the wedding, she told me she'd be staying with her bridesmaids at a hotel for a girls' night. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and said, "You deserve a break before the big day." She smiled back, guilt flickering in her eyes for a split second before she left. The second the door closed, I opened the tracking app I'd quietly installed weeks earlier, the same one I'd told her was for safety. Her location pinged not at a hotel, but at Derek's private villa just outside the city. I drove there, hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Every red light felt like an eternity. When I finally arrived, I parked a block away and sat in silence, watching the villa's windows flicker with soft light. And then I saw them, Derek and Hannah, on the balcony, laughing, glasses in hand, kissing like two people celebrating something forbidden. The same woman I'd been ready to vow my life to was there, hours before our wedding, in another man's arms. Something inside me cracked open, not with rage, but with clarity. It was over. Whatever part of me had loved her was gone. I didn't knock on the door. I didn't shout or beg or cry. I just turned the engine back on and drove away by sunrise. The venue manager had received an email sent from Hannah's own account canceling the entire wedding and notifying every vendor, deposits lost, guests confused. Her reputation shattered before she even woke up, and as she slept beside the man, she destroyed me. I finally felt something close to peace, because that night, the old Metha man who believed in loyalty died quietly, and someone far colder took his place. Monday morning came like any other. The office buzzed with noise, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, but for me, everything moved in slow motion. My world had already ended days ago. Now, it was time to bury what was left. I walked in wearing my usual calm smile, holding a resignation letter neatly folded in my jacket pocket. Derek was in the conference room, laughing with a client. When he saw me, he gave his usual grin. "Morning, partner," he said, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't stolen the life I built. I handed him a folder. "Something for you," I said. He opened it. Financial reports, projections, performance charts, nothing unusual on the surface. But hidden between them were seeds I'd been planting for weeks. Clients I'd spoken to. Deals quietly prepared to shift the moment I walked away. "You're leaving?" he asked, eyebrows raised. I smiled faintly. "Just exploring new opportunities." His jaw tightened for a second. Then that fake grin returned. "You'll be back. Everyone comes back." I nodded politely, shaking his hand for the last time. "Take care, Derek." That was it. No scene, no confrontation. Just silence. The kind that said more than words ever could. By noon, I was gone. My resignation email hit HR's inbox, and by sunset, half the company's biggest clients had signed transfer contracts to my new agency, a small firm I'd built quietly through trusted contacts and years of relationships. Derek took for granted. When I walked out of that building, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean, like I'd finally washed off the years of blind loyalty, the humiliation, the weight of pretending. Derek still thought he'd won. Hannah still thought I was broken. But the truth was, they had no idea that their victories were temporary. Not yet, because I'd learned something powerful in my silence. Revenge doesn't need noise. It only needs precision. It started quietly. A few confused emails, some missed deadlines. Then, within days, Derek's entire world began to unravel. The clients I'd nurtured personally for years, people who trusted my judgment over his charm, were pulling their contracts one by one. I'd been careful to move everything legally through proper channels, so he couldn't accuse me of stealing. On paper, it looked like a coincidence. In reality, it was an implosion I had engineered down to the hour. By the second week, whispers spread through the company. Investors were calling nuts. Projects were collapsing. Derek, the man who always prided himself on control, looked like a ghost. I watched from afar, not gloating, just observing. He tried to salvage things, even reached out to me once. His message was short. "I think we should talk. There's been a misunderstanding." I didn't reply. There was no misunderstanding, only consequences. As his company bled money, a series of internal leaks surfaced. Someone, an anonymous source, had sent evidence of Derek's personal expenses being billed to the company account. Hotel stays, flights, dinners. Some of those receipts included Hannah's name. Within 48 hours, the board forced him to resign. His reputation, the one thing he valued most, was gone. Hannah wasn't spared either. Her friends started cutting her off after finding out what she'd done. Photos of her at Derek's villa circulated among mutual acquaintances. She messaged me one night, "Please, can we talk? You don't understand what happened." I stared at the text for a long time before deleting it. I understood perfectly. By the end of that month, Derek's company was sold for scraps, and he disappeared from the city. Hannah moved in with her parents, who had no idea why the wedding had really been called off, and me. I stayed quiet through it all. I never told a soul what really happened. I didn't need to. Their silence told the story for me louder than I ever could. 6 months later, I was a different man. Not bitter, not angry, just still. I'd launched my own agency under a new name, built from the same principles Derek used to mock honesty, patience, respect. The irony wasn't lost on me that the very ethics he dismissed became the foundation of everything he lost. The clients who followed me weren't just contracts, they were people who saw the difference between a manipulator and a man who kept his word. Business was steady, then booming. My phone never stopped ringing. Every so often, I'd hear Derek's name whispered in industry circles. Rumors said he tried freelancing, but no one would touch him. Too much baggage. Too many burned bridges. Hannah, on the other hand, tried to rebuild her image online, posting travel photos, inspirational quotes about new beginnings. Once, she sent me a long email. She said Derek had turned on her after losing everything that he'd used her, that she was broken and lost. She wanted forgiveness, closure, a chance to talk. I didn't reply. I read every line slowly, not with anger, but with detachment. It felt like reading about strangers. She had become one long before the affair, long before the lies. I hovered over the reply button, thought about typing something like, "I forgive you," but that would have been too easy for her. Instead, I deleted the message and emptied the trash folder. Peace didn't come from hurting them. It came from realizing I didn't need to anymore. I'd already won by walking away with my integrity intact. They destroyed themselves trying to destroy me. When people ask how I built my company so fast, I just smile and say, experience. They'll never know what that word really means, because some victories don't need applause, they just need silence. And time to echo. It's been over a year now, and sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night, wondering if it all really happened. The betrayal, the lies, the quiet revenge feels like a different lifetime. My apartment is smaller than the house Hannah and I almost bought, but it's peaceful. No hidden messages, no cold silences, no pretending. Just the soft hum of the city and the calm that comes from finally being free every so often. I drive past the old office building. The company name has changed, the lobby looks different. But I still remember the feeling of walking out that day, how the air felt lighter. How every step away from Derek and Hannah felt like taking back a piece of myself. People think revenge is about rage, but it's not. It's about clarity. It's about standing in the ruins of what they've built on your back and realizing you don't need to rebuild theirs, you just build your own. I don't hate them anymore. Hatred requires energy, and I've already given them enough of mine. Now, I pour everything into my work, into mentoring younger creatives who remind me of who I was before all this. Hopeful, trusting, maybe a little naive. I tell them one thing: never mistake loyalty for blindness. Sometimes, at night, I'll catch my reflection in the window and almost not recognize the man staring back. There's a calmness there now, a quiet strength I didn't have before. What they did broke me, but what I did afterward rebuilt me stronger. Hannah and Derek taught me the cruelest lesson in trust, but also the most valuable one in self-worth. Because in the end, I didn't destroy them to feel powerful. I simply walked away, and that silence, that peace, became the loudest revenge of all.